Jason, when did you start playing violin?
I think it was a couple of weeks before my third birthday.
Suzuki?
Suzuki Violin. Suzuki Violin is a method of violin in which you don't read music, and it's basically an early form of ear training. And what they do is they put stickers on your violin where your first finger should go, your second finger, and your third finger. And the child will match their fingers with the sticker and then that will kind of help them learn what notes those are, and eventually when they get good enough they take the stickers away and then they use their ear to find those notes.
What are the pitches of those strings?
This is a 5-string violin. A regular violin wouldn't have this lowest string, and it would start from the lowest to the highest, G, D, A, and E. But this is a 5-string, so it has a low C, which is a viola string. These four, C, G, D, A, would be a viola, and G, D, A, E would be a violin. And so it's a hybrid of the two.
So do you play it as two different instruments or just two different sounds?
I've learned to play it. I've been playing 5 strings, electric and acoustic, for about 5 or 6 years, so I've been trying to treat it as one instrument and not look at it as a viola at times and a violin. But sometimes if the song requires that, if I'm playing, say, a string quartet for something and creating that on the spot, then maybe I would look at it as a violin at first, and then when I did the lower part, look at it as a viola and not play the high string, and try to do it like that. But most of the time, when I'm improvising, I play it like just one instrument, one 5-string instrument.
Can you give me an example of playing a melody line as a violin and the same melody line as a viola?
Sure. Would be a violin. Let me just tighten this up here. And then this goes lower than the violin range, same melody, but as a viola.
And it's that low string that makes that pop. That's low C string.
It's a low C string that makes that. Yeah.
Interesting. That's really fascinating. There are 2 instruments. I notice you have another instrument, which tell us about that.
Yeah, this is an octave violin, or also could be called a baritone violin. And what it is the same notes as this, only an octave lower. That's why they call it an octave violin. So it's C, G, D, A, E. This being the lowest note of the cello, this low C. So these 4 strings, C, G, D, A, which is an octave lower than a viola, would be the 4 strings of the cello. But this also has a high E, which would be a whole step above the D string on the regular violin. So this is kind of a cello-viola hybrid.
Well, do the same thing. Play
the same melodies on this. On the high register, this would be the same thing that I played on there. It's got a different kind of tone, and then it's cello.
So you have the string section.
Yeah, pretty much in these 2 instruments I can cover a lot of ground.
Very interesting. How did you use these instruments on this record?
Well, one of the things we did with this was we put it through a Leslie speaker, which normally is for Hammond B3, and that gave it a real thick, interesting, different type of sound. And we also used it just mic'd to make it, sound like a cello. And we did a lot. I was actually thinking about this last night. I think there's 12 songs out of that have strings on this record, so there's definitely a lot. A lot of layering, a lot of baritone, kind of doubling the bass in some parts and using it as a bass substitute in other parts.
If you were going to give me a basic lesson on this instrument, how would it go? A lot of times on guitar, people will just teach the kid the song that he likes.
Right.
Can you do that on violin?
It's a little bit harder, unless the song that he likes is "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star." there's no frets on this, so it's really, you have to start, with something really basic, and that all is within the same position. So if you go in first position, you have the open string, your first finger, second finger, third finger, and then your pinky, which is your fourth finger. Your fourth finger matches the open string of the next highest string. So if we go up on the G string here, the D would be the fourth finger, and that's the open D, the next string. So really the fourth finger is a double for the open string. And so that would be your basic pattern. 1, 2, 3. Now, what you can do is there's a lot of space, like in between my first and second finger there. If you wanted, that's a whole step right there. That space is a whole step. If you move that like that, then you have a half step. Same thing goes between the first finger and the open string. If you put it there, you have the half step. So demonstrate that. You have, here's where your first finger normally goes. There's the open string, but then there's this note. So there's E, F. F sharp is really where your first finger, and then you can keep going with your second finger. Half step. But really, in the first position that you would learn as a violinist would just be, 1, 2, 3, 4. But not any of this would be considered a low 2 or a low 1. That would be the next step to get your chromatic scale. So you're really using, each finger twice to go up, the chromatic scale. Because it's mainly whole steps.
It's very interesting that you just move the finger to create the half step. Each finger moves a half inch and a half step.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I can see why it would be very much necessary to have ear training, in a sense, first.
Yeah.
So that's what Suzuki is designed to do, is to create an ear training exercise just from the movement of the fingers in a simple way.
Yeah. What they would do, the first song is Twinkle Twinkle, and what they would do is you'd have the stickers on, and you'd sing it in class first, and it'd be A, E, 1, 1, E, and you're actually saying the string and also the number. And then, you have your first finger there, and you play the open A and E string. And they get groups of 30 and 40 kids doing it at once. You can get some pretty interesting sounds out of it.
Well, tell me more. What would, after you learn the position of your fingers, and then there's the bowing.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the whole other thing. What they teach you, start is just the bow grip. Right here is where you would put your thumb, and then you have your other 4 fingers on top. And there's some bad technique right there. That's supposed to be curved, but generally, if you watch me play, I'd be playing it flat. But the traditional classical way would be to have all your fingers curved, and then. But if I really just relaxed and played the way that I play, I kind of grab around so I can really get a hold of it to have maximum strength with it. But it's all different ways. If it sounds good, I think you go with that. One thing that they tell you not to do, which I do all the time, is to not have your hand flat. To always have this like this. But I end up having a tendency to kind of go like that. Not all the time, but sometimes. Again, it's bad technique, but sometimes you can get some different tones and have more freedom in movement, more strength in certain areas doing that.
And you can play, of course, more than one string at a time.
Sure. That's considered double stops or triple stops, and when I do double stops, most of the time, I usually leave an open string. A lot of people would do that. But you can also, I think I did this in the solo and Out of the Box, where I didn't use any open strings, and I went and did some, more darker intervals like that. More in like the bluegrass country feel is to have that open string, but you don't have to. And then triple stop, or more, classical music, you have some stuff like this. And you can't really hit all four at once, so you kind of fake it. You can pretty much get, them in a roll, and then you land on the last two. But if you do it really fast, you feel like you're getting the whole chord.
And you can also play harmonics.
Mm-hmm. One of the easiest harmonics to find on the violin would be the third finger. And what you do is you just don't really press it at all. You just kind of barely touch the string on that spot. You really have to be exact, as I just see it took me a while to get it. Also, another good spot is an octave higher. Actually, that's probably easier than the third finger. I use that on D tune a lot. The opening of the tune is me. And I'm tapping. I'm doing a lot of that, layering like that at the beginning of that song.
I noticed that you play this instrument with a number of different bands. Do you play it differently depending on the band or depending on the music?
I would say so. With Shannon McNally, I would play violin on this one song, Bury My Heart on the Jersey Shore, and it was kind of like a rock tune, so I would play it like, I'd crank it up really loud, and I'd play it kind of like a guitar, with, like, kind of dirty, and using like a lot of matching, like we were saying, the fourth finger matches that string. So if you do it in a slide, you kind of get like this kind of guitar thing happening, and that was kind of the style that I would play with her. Susan Tedeschi has a song, Looking for Answers, which is more kind of ethereal and dark and moody, and that I'd play a lot more like a lower tone, like a viola. That type of feel. And then, with O'Teal, his music is, it's got all of these advanced chords, so it's a lot of melodies and soloing over these progressions that are very new, for violin players, I think, and like Thank You, that scale. That's some kind of harmonic scale that really does not fit in with any of that 1, 2, 3 pattern we were talking about. So, there's a lot of different movement there. Within, still playing in first position, but there's, it's a different way of playing for sure. And my band is kind of like a lot of all of those elements at once. So I would say when I'm playing my music, I'm thinking about all of those things, because I love all different styles, and I love playing with all those bands, and I think that's kind of who I am, and what my music comes out as is a result of all playing with all of these different people and getting all of their influence mixed into my style, and and making it what I do.
Can you play any song that you can hear?
I can pretty much play any melody or song back at you, pretty quickly. From having perfect pitch, I recognize the note and, play it back. If you whistle the melody, I could play it back to you on the violin. Yeah.
Interesting talent, huh? Does it ever get in your way?
Sometimes, if I know a song really well and I've played it and I've got all of these inversions and a way to do it, and then say the singer is different or wants to change a key, or the guitar, if you have to change a key on a song, that makes it's a little harder for me than other people, because the way I hear it is just as a tone, and I don't want to say color, but in a way, it's it is what it is, and for me to then transpose it a half step or a whole step, it's like I have to relearn it. Where a lot of guitar players, they can just be like, oh, okay, I'll just move here, or even piano players that don't have perfect pitch, they have it worked out mathematically to change keys, and I'm starting to work on that, so I can, and I'm a lot better at that now than I was. When I was 16 or 17, first playing with bands, I remember there was a band that was dropped tuned to D, and then they got a new singer and they tuned their guitars back up to E, and I had to relearn all of the songs like, you know, kind of writing it out and relearning and memorizing it because it was just foreign to me. I was like, hey, these songs are in these keys. I just didn't know it any other way, really growing up in classical world, you know. So that's the only time I guess has really gotten in my way.
Can you play in every key
Yeah.
equally well? I mean, there's a physical change.
No, yeah, I mean, certain keys, like I was telling about the O'Teal thing, you know, that line I had to definitely practice, and you know, a lot of his stuff is difficult, and you know, certain keys are more difficult than others. You know, the key of A major is really easy because he's just got all of these, you know, notes we were talking about all there. You know, I'm just really going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 really fast with the open string. But then you're talking about, you know, D flat. That's much harder because, you know, instead of an open string, you have a low 1 as your bass, and then everything is around that. So it's like you're in a half position rather than a first position. At least that's the way I look at it for D flat, and that's, you know, it's much harder to keep in tune because, you know, you miss by a, you know, millimeter, and you're going to change the pitch of, you know, what you're playing. So violin is one of the hardest instruments because of that. It's just, you know, not only is it fretless, but it's a small fretboard. So it's not much room.
Are there any tricks they teach you about how to maintain a consistency of sound? I mean, every finger is a different note. It seems like might make a difference how you.
Well, the best way would be to practice scales to get, you know, each finger equally strengthened. The tendency, and this is the case with me, is that your pinky is the weakest finger, you know, and you know, it takes a lot of work to strengthen that to get it going, and you know. Basically, I use the pinky when I really need it. You know, if I really need a strong note in this register, even if it's, you know, up here, or I'll just move up and play, you know, the first 3 fingers if I really need it strong. But if it's something that's in passing, I'll use my pinky. But, you know, for something that's really, you know, dig in, I just use my strengths.
So you sight read well.
Yeah, sight reading was definitely one of my biggest strengths growing up. You know, when we would take NISMA and all of those things, like I would always score really well in the sight reading. It's just to me, it's like reading a book or reading English.
Well, is there some exercise or some trick that caused it to be that way for you, or it just?
I think it's just honestly just an early age. You know, I was reading music as early as I was reading, you know, everything else. So it was just something that I wouldn't know it any other way.
But I think it's time for dinner, Jason.
All right.
So get your stuff and let's go.
Okay.